Hi everyone, and welcome to today's class where we're going to be making these lovely Christmas tree decorations. They'd be nice for a table centre. So this middle size one is the one we're going to be making in the class today. You can make these absolutely any size that you want. The smallest one here is 8 inches tall. This one's 10 inches tall. This one's 15. They're hollow inside, so you could put something up underneath and you can make them taller or shorter. They also stack nicely as well for storage. Okay, so instead of having a printout template this time, because it's quite an easy thing to do, I thought I'd show you how to make your own. Then you can make these any size that you want. So all you need is some A4 paper, any paper, and a ruler and a pencil or a pen. This is a friction pen that can be rubbed out, so if you make a mistake. Now the three that I made are just these three different sizes. You can make these any size that you want. So this one measures 8 by 4. This is the littlest one, the smallest size. And then the medium size, I made 5 by 10. These are in inches. And then this is the biggest size, so this is quite large, and this is 7.5 by 15. So if you're making the bigger ones, you'll just need to maybe stick 2 pieces of paper together. Okay, so I'm just going to do the middle size one that I've done. So all you need to do first is just going to draw a rectangle, basically. So this one would be 5 by 10. So if you just draw yourself on a piece of paper a rectangle, which is 5 inches wide by 10 inches tall. Okay, and then find the centre top. So half of 5 is 2.5, and just put a mark there. Okay, so I've got a rectangle. Now I've kept all these trees, all my trees, I've made them so that the height is just twice the width. So this is 5 inch and this is 10 inch tall. So find the centre, which is 2.5 inches at the top, or half of whatever size you're doing, and then all you're going to do is just literally just draw a line from the centre point to the corner. Do this as easy as that. So you would just cut these away and you've got your triangle. Okay, and you can always write on your measurements so you know how big you made it for future reference. And then your side panel here, the diagonal line here, will be, it should work out to be 1/4 of an inch longer than the height. So if I measure that, that's important to know. See, that's 10.25 inch. So that's important to know for your binding. So okay, whatever size tree that you draw, so this is 10 inches tall, when you've finished, it will be approximately an inch shorter. The width will be the same because there isn't any seam allowance at all. So when you get the whole size of the thing, but the only place you lose a little bit is just in the height, and you lose about an inch. And the reason for that is when we put the binding on here, these pieces here, which we're going to sew at 1/4 of an inch, I can draw them on here so that you'll get the idea. So this is going to be sewn onto the front. It doesn't make a seam. We're not doing a seam allowance. I can just draw that on, and where they cross over at the top, can you see that where they cross there? This is the bit that you're going to lose at the top. So this will be pretty much the finished height, anything below that line. So if you wanted to, you could always fold that down and say that's going to be your finished size, because you don't lose any of the side at the sides when we're doing this bit here. Okay, so the products that you're going to need for these are, you're going to need 2 pieces of fabric, one for your outer tree, and then the one for the inside. It can just be anything because you're not going to see it. If you're using a non-directional fabric, you won't need as much fabric as you'll need if you're going to use a directional fabric, as in one that points in one direction. What I mean by that is, this robin fabric, you can have it any way around you want and it still looks the same, which is important because when we're cutting these triangles out afterwards, you'll put one this way, and then there'll be one like this upside down and one here to fit on that bit of paper. And it won't matter because it's multi-directional. But if you're going to use a directional fabric like this, where they're all pointing in one direction, you can't have the one upside down in the middle, because obviously it will be upside down. So you'll need a wider piece of fabric. So for this one, I'm doing, that's 5 inches wide and 10 inches tall. So you will fit, you need your piece of fabric to be the size of 2 of these sat by side by side. So that's 10 inch. And then you want to add a little bit just to make sure that when you've quilted it, because when you quilt it, it does shrink down a little bit. So I would make it, so this is 5 inches, so it needs to be 10 inch, and then it's 10 inches tall, so it would be 10 inch, and then I'm going to add 1.5 inches all the way around. I would recommend 1.5 to 2 inches bigger. So this is, I've done 11 here, but I would really do that extra 0.5 inch to 2 inches. So this is 11 inches square. I'd recommend for this 10 inch one, maybe 11.5 to 12 inches square. This will fit, but if you have anything that shifts slightly and your fabric you don't line it up very well, it'll just make that little bit of difference. Okay, so if you're doing it non-directional, then twice the width plus 1.5 inches to 2 inches, and then the same in the height. Add the size of the height plus add 1 inch to 2 inches. Okay, if you're going to use a directional fabric like this one, then you're going to have 3 of these in a row. So as this one is 5 inches, 3 of those next to each other would be 15 inches, and then again add your inch to maybe add 2 inches to that one, just to be on the safe side. Do bear in mind with the directional fabric you'll have more waste, because the ones that are in between will be upside down. I do recommend non-directional fabric, and if you've got ones that are like a nice focal fabric, like this Moda one that I used here, it's a great way of using your really nice striking fabrics. You could do this with Quilt As You Go as well. I've seen these before done with Quilt As You Go, but I'm just doing them with the fabric to use up these, especially when you've got big prints like this. Okay, and then your binding, you're going to need 3 pieces for going around the sides. 1, 2, 3. These are just the joining pieces. It's not really bound, it's the joining pieces. So they need to be 1 inch in width or in height. If you were cutting this way, this is 1 inch high, and then the width. So ours is 10.25, whatever the length here is. So ours is 10.25. I would just add 1 inch onto that. It's just so you've got a bit of extra at the bottom, which will be trimmed off after anyway, just to make sure everything fits. So 1 inch in the height by whatever size that you're doing here, plus 1 inch, 0.5 inch to 1 inch. So you'll need 3 of those. And then the one that we're going to put around the bottom needs to be, it's easier to do if you just do this a little bit wider. So I've made this 1.25 inch height, and it just makes it easier for wrapping around the layers. It needs to be 3 times this width here, so the bottom width, so this would be 15, and then I've added 2 inches on because you're going to cross it over and fold over the end just to make it neat. So you'll have a bit of extra to cut off, but so 3 times whatever this width is here, and add about 2 inches onto that. So 1.25 width, height, 1.25, I usually do height by width, so this would be height, 1.25 high by 3 times the width of your tree plus 2 inches. Best thing really to use is Bosal foam if you've got it. This one's done, this is the sturdiest one, it's done with Bosal foam, as is this small one here. It does squash down and jumps back up again, but this is it stands up best or looks the neatest on Bosal foam, but you can do this with wadding as well. So Bosal foam, there's 3 different kinds. There's one with no glue on at all, which is this one. It's just plain on both sides. You've got one that's double-sided. This is the gluey side, and it's the same on both sides. So you could glue both pieces of fabric to it. And then you've got one with the adhesive just on one side, like this one here. You don't have to quilt it. This one's not quilted, but it does look really nice when it is. If it's not quilted, you may want to, like this, you may want to stick your fabric to it with some 505 spray if you've got that. If not, you might want to use some Bonder web or Fuser web, the double-sided glue in sheets, and then you can put that onto your foam and stick it on that way. But you do need some way of attaching it, really. It really needs to be stuck down or quilted. Your 3 different kinds of foam. Now, if you haven't got foam, or you don't want to use foam, you can use your standard wadding. This is iron-on wadding. Most of us have iron-on wadding. You can see that's the gluey side with the dots. Now, this is quite thin, the one I've got here. So you can use the Vlizoline H640 or H630. H630 is thinner and H640 is a little bit thicker. But when you use the wadding, which like I've done on this quilted piece here, it is quite thin and it's just more prone to twist. Can you see? You do get a little bit of twist on them, but it's more prone to twist when it's just the wadding. So all I've used on this one is a single piece of wadding, and it's twisted quite a bit. This is Bosal, and it's hardly twisted at all at the top, as is this one. This one's Bosal as well. But again, if you use wadding, you can iron your wadding onto one piece, the outer or the lining, it doesn't matter. I ironed mine onto the outer fabric, and then on your lining fabric you could either iron another piece of wadding, have a double layer of wadding so it's a bit thicker, sturdier, or to keep the price down a bit so it's not as expensive, I know that's important to everybody at the moment, use one piece of wadding. And if you've got any of this cheap interfacing that's a bit like me, this was a medium weight interface, it's very papery, it's got dotty glue on one side and it does crease quite badly. I don't like using it in my bag projects and things like this, but for this it's not too bad because it feels quite sturdy. So if you've got any of that and you don't know what to do with it, you could use that interfacing. This tree here stands up better and it feels better and it's twisted less. Oh, sorry, visitor. This one has twisted less, in fact hardly at all, because the lining layer I've put this interfacing on, this medium weight interfacing. It doesn't matter that it crinkles and wrinkles because it's on the inside and you're not going to see it anyway. Okay, so you're going to layer your pieces together. So you'll have your outer fabric with your wadding attached, and then you'll have your lining with either your interfacing attached or another piece of wadding attached, or your Bosal foam. Once you've got all your layers together, go away and quilt it, and then meet me back here. So once you've quilted everything, we next need to cut out our triangles. So I've just got a couple of pins, so however you like to do this. And then I'm just going to cut it out directly off the fabric. Make sure you've left yourself enough room on this side for putting another one to the side of it. So I'm just going to quickly cut that out. Okay, so that's one. And then you'll get another one this way. Okay, so that's 2. And then your third one is going to be back this way up. If you want your pattern to line up, just put it alongside it. So that doesn't really matter. Okay, so there's your 3 triangles cut out. You see what I mean about non-directional? Because you have to, this one that's upside down, turn it around. Again, so that shows you if you have to have it, your pattern directional. This is the size like of the fabric. This is how they'll be laid out on the fabric to be cut out, and you'll have these pieces will be waste. But okay, so that's your 3 trees. You can see they're going to go together like this. Okay, so here comes the binding. So put your one for the bottom, the long one you've done, aside. We don't need that one for now. I've got some clips out. You could still use pins if you want. We're just going to do one of these at a time. And we're going to put on our binding. So you've got your triangle the right way up. And then you're going to get a piece of your binding. And then you're going to put that right side down. And then you could clip this on. Just got it lined up with the top point there. Okay, so now you're going to go to your machine and you're going to sew that at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so we're sat at the machine here. Okay, so you need to line up with your 1/4 of an inch line or mark, which is my 7mm line there. Make sure it's straight. You're not going at an angle. You'll have your slanted side pointing in a straight line down, not at an angle like that. You're going to be sewing straight down. So line up the edge here, and that should start you off in the right place. I'm just going to do a regular stitch length of 2.4 because I'm just going through cotton and things. I've got a size 80/12 needling. That's pretty much my go-to. Okay, so 1/4 of an inch. So I'm just going to back stitch there at the top and then just sew 1/4 of an inch all the way down. Just make sure that's lined up. Okay, so that's now stitched on. So that then you want to push that across and press that down. You could just finger press it or you could press it with your iron. Okay, so now we've stitched that one on. That's now pressed. Get your next triangle and then put that one face down. And you're going to line that one up on top of the binding along the other edge. So line up your point to the top. And then clip all this in place as well. Now you could sew it from this side if you want. You could start at the bottom. I'll try that. 1/4 of an inch. You could sew this from either side. Okay. So there we go. Open that out and there's our joining piece. So you could give that a finger press or a press with your iron, whichever. And that's your first 2 pieces together. So now you want to get your next strip. And again, you want to join it. Start at the top and clip that on all the way down. Clip that one on all the way down and stitch that one on and then press it back and then attach your next triangle. Okay, so that's that. And then again, take your third triangle, lay that over and do exactly what you did with the other one. Whether you start at the top or whether you start at the bottom is your choice. So put that one on and stitch that one into place. Okay, so that's your third triangle on, and then stitch your last piece on. Stitch your last piece on, and then I'll show you how to join it together. Okay, so before I stitch these 3 sides together, Not quite sure why it happens, but the middle one here seems longer. So I'm just going to trim the bottom down and trim these to size. So I'm just going to trim a straight line straight across here, trim off these bottom bits of binding and trim off that piece of binding there, level with the bottom. Okay, so there you go, that's all trimmed up. So we're just going to bring, so you've got it the right way up like this, so you're going to bring this left side and line this one up over along the edge of this last piece of this piece of binding here. Clip all that in place just like we did before. Okay, so I'm stitching this one from the binding side and I'm going to start at the bottom again at 1/4 of an inch. And back stitch there at the top. Okay, there we go. So we're all stitched together now. So approximately about an inch down, I'm just going to run an extra set of stitches just to make sure it's straight. You can draw a line across to do this, just to make sure nothing comes undone. I'm just going to back stitch over that a couple of times. Okay. So there we go, and then we can just trim that off at the top there. Okay, so there's our tree. So we're going to can just trim that where you've got that line there. Trim that to about, so you've got about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And then you're going to turn your tree through. So there's your basic tree. So all there is left to do now is to put our binding on the bottom. So you've got your longer piece of binding. Now if you can do this, if you're doing a bigger one, you can do it around the free arm on your foot. This may go around the free arm on my machine. Okay, so if it doesn't fit around the free arm of your machine, mine's a little bit small. Your bigger ones, you could go around the arm of your free arm of your machine, and then you could turn it inside out and sew it that way. But I'm just going to sew from the inside like this. Okay, so if it won't fit around the free arm of your machine, like mine won't, got this, I'm going to do it this way. So I've got the outside, I've got it facing the right way, so the outside fabric facing outwards, but we're going to work on the inside. So fold over one end of your binding and just press that down, and then I'm going to start on one of the panels. The bottom, this is at the bottom. I'm on the inside, so the right side of your binding fabric facing down against the wrong side of your tree panel. So you're going to line up the edge to the edge. You've folded over one end about 1/2 inch, and you're going to clip this edge to edge all the way around. Okay, so we're going to overlap where we've folded the fabric here, where the fabric's folded. We'll just put this straight across that and clip that on. So you're going to go past by about 1 inch. If you want to trim any of the excess off from that you can do, as long as you get about 1 inch overlap. And then we're going to take this to the machine and sew this down. You don't need to fold this piece at all because it'll be hidden inside. Okay, so we're just going to stitch this down now. So you'll place it on your machine like this. You'll have to press this top bit down out your way. I'm going to start where the join is. So here, this is where it overlaps. So this is the start. I'm just going to start there. Okay. So we're doing it 1/4 inch seam allowance. So you need to back stitch at the start. And then sew all the way around at 1/4 inch. You will have to keep stopping and repositioning. You might want some tweezers or something to help hold it in place. When you get to the centre of the join, I can just see there, I'm in the centre of where these two seams meet. You can lift your foot and turn it. Hitch that round, lift your foot and turn it, so then this side is straight with your 1/4 inch mark, and then carry straight on, so you're sewing in a straight line. Okay, reposition everything. See here, this is where you could put a little slit if you needed to, and you'd be able to see the centre of the join, or you could put a tool there to help hold it. There we go, I've got some pointy tweezers, so that's the centre there. When I get to there, I'm going to stop, lift my foot, turn, so that this edge is now straight with my 1/4 inch mark, or your 1/4 inch foot, or however you're doing this. And then you just sew it in a straight line down this side. And then there's where we started. So we'll just stitch over and stitch over that slightly, just back stitch. Okay, let's move my machine. Okay, so that's your binding sewn to the inside. So then fold that all to the outside. You could give it a press if you wanted to. I'm just going to give mine a finger press down that seam. Okay. And then we're going to fold it round to this side. Now you can see your stitch line here. We're going to fold it so it just goes past. So fold in once up to the edge here, up to the edge of your tree panel. So fold it in and then fold it over so you just cover that stitch line, and then clip that in place. And then you can do that, just tuck that under, fold it over. Make sure you cover your stitch line because you don't want to see that. So do this all the way around. So you fold over till you meet the edge of the bottom of the panel, and then you fold it again so that the folded edge just passes your stitch line. Just clip that in. Now you could glue all this in place if you wanted to. Once you'd folded it, if you wanted to make it a bit easier, you could glue it all down with a fabric glue. Okay, just fold to the edge and then fold over. I'm doing it in sections. I'm not trying to do it in little bits here. I'm moving quite away and folding up because it automatically then folds under over here. And then clip all that. You can readjust as you're sewing it. See, these have already tucked under naturally. Okay, so that's all clipped down. Now you might want to just turn this through a bit. Just push that inside. You don't need to turn it through completely. But again, we're going to be sewing on the machine bed like this. And choose where you want to start. You might want to change your thread now to a, like here, could change to a red one. I'm going to do it in the same colour I was already doing, this sagey green like there. But you might want to change to one that matches your binding, so if your line's not so straight, it doesn't stand out. So I'm just going to start here at the join at the back. Okay, just press it all flat, and now make your stitch length maybe 3.5 to 4 millimeters long. I'll just do it at 3.5, and then we're going to sew. Just take that clip off. Tweezers, or use your pokey tool, or whatever you use. We're going to sew about 1/8 of an inch in from this folded edge here, about 1/8 of an inch in. See if I can zoom in a bit. Okay, so we're just going to sew about 1/8 of an inch in from this folded line here. I'm going to start around where that seam is. Now here you could line your the fold in your fabric up to this side of your foot there, so it lines up in this gap, and then you could move your needle across to roughly 1/8 of an inch away from here. That might make it easier for you. And then I've changed my stitch length to 3.5 or 3.4. Put my needle down. I'm going to use my tweezers to help, and then do a couple of back stitches, and then you're going to top stitch this all the way around. Now there I can see my stitch line, so you want to pull it over a bit. Tweezers come in handy for this, and then just take your time. Don't worry about it what it looks on the other side, because that's on the inside and it's going to be stood up and you won't see it. Just concentrate on doing your best to get it as straight as possible on this side. Right, I'm back at the beginning here. So I'm going to overlap there and just back stitch a couple of stitches. There we go. So other than trimming your threads, that's everything done. So just turn it back through to the right side. There you go. So hopefully you've got a nice even top stitch line there. If it's not even in the inside, it doesn't matter because you can't see it. If you've done it roughly neatly, you mostly will catch it on the binding on the other side. But again, don't worry about that because you're not going to see it. Okay, so congratulations, there you go. There's your finished tree. That's what it looks like inside. So you could decorate this however you want. You could sew on buttons. You could stitch on some little tree lights, the little battery powered lights. You could stitch them on going round, put the battery pack up inside. Stitch on sequins and ribbons and anything you want really. The panels, before you put the binding on, you could stitch ribbon across to make it look like tinsel on a tree. Things like that. You could embroider patterns on. You could make a star to sit at the top of the tree. So I hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to join our Woolly Elephant Crafters Facebook group and share the pictures of all your lovely makes to inspire myself and everybody else. Thanks for watching.